There was one painting, just one, that changed my entire career and in fact changed my entire life. It was called Forest Window. And if I hadn't created this painting, things would probably have worked out very differently. Instead of sitting here talking to you about building a successful career as an artist, I'd probably be sitting in a cubicle working corporate security, wondering where it had all gone wrong. But it didn't go wrong because of this one painting. Before Forest Window, I was all over the map, stylistically, painting many different subjects in many different ways. I was playing with watercolor, casein, oil, collage, kind of a mixed bag of everything. I was on that search for my unique voice. And I was selling. Better than most artists, but I wasn't getting that over the top, people talking about it, reaction, people saying, oh my God, I have to have it. Have you seen this guy's work? And I just knew that I had to keep pushing until I found that voice. And at this time, if you walked into my booth or my tent, you might think you were looking at the work of 10 different artists. And people actually ask me that all the time if I did all of this work. And I was constantly getting the same piece of well-meaning advice from artists as well as clients. And that was, Tim, you know, if you pick just one of these styles and stuck with it, you'd probably do much better. And you know, in the short term, maybe they were right. But again, there was nothing that I was creating that was getting that over the top reaction. And I just knew I had to keep searching. And then one day in 2004, I created Forest Window. This was the very first time that I used the process that I still use today of toning the canvas red, blocking in the trees with fluid acrylic, then painting the foreground foliage in oils, painting the negative shapes of the skies, painting in the sun to create that backlit forest scene. And while I was working on this painting, something funny happened. I just went like totally in flow state. This painting kind of went start to finish, almost like someone else was guiding my hand. And when I finished this piece, I looked at it and I thought, this might be the best painting I've ever created. So there was two of the three things kind of already there. I loved the process and I loved the painting. Now the question is, would the public love the painting? Well, I had a festival coming up in Vineland near Niagara Falls. So this painting was one of about 30 pieces in my booth. And as I say, these other pieces were all over the map. The gates for the festival opened at 10 o'clock and within 5 minutes, I sold that painting. Now, this is where I think kind of fate kind of had a hand in things, because the couple that bought the painting, they said to me that, you know, they wanted to look around at the festival some more. And they didn't want to have to carry this painting. It was a 3 foot by 3 foot piece. So they asked me if I could keep it for now and they would come back and pick it up at the end. So they paid for it and then just left it with me. Well, I just left it hanging in my tent and I could have sold that painting every 5 minutes. Everybody that walked by my booth was drawn to that piece. And it actually got to the point where I had to take it down and wrap it up and get it out of there because people were so disappointed when they found out that it was sold that they just quit looking at my other work and kind of walked out. And I'd never had that kind of an over-the-top reaction from one piece before. And again, going back to that whole thing, the three things that you need to have, I believe, to have a successful career is to create a unique voice where you love the process, you love and are proud of the finished work, and the public loves the finished work. Well, I knew at least at this festival that I'd gotten that reaction. So when it was over, I went back and it's like, okay, now it's time to shift into product mode and try and create more pieces like this. Well, I had a fundraising auction that was coming up in the beginning of 2005 at the Burlington Arts Center. And this was like a pretty fancy hoity-toity black tie event where they usually got pretty good prices. So I did 2 more pieces using this process in this style. And I wasn't actually at the auction, but the next morning I got a call and it was from one of the organizers of the auction. And she told me that both my pieces had sold for over double the price that I had put on them. And she wanted to commission a piece off of me. So again, that's that kind of the public just telling you you're on to something there. Well, later on that year, there was a big show coming up in Toronto, the Toronto Art Expo. Now this was a big show, but with a big price tag. Up until this point, I'd been doing shows and festivals where it might be a couple $100, maybe $400 or $500, but this festival was going to cost about $5,000. And I had a friend of mine who owned a gallery who was also carrying some of my work, who really pushed me to doing this show. He had seen my new work and he thought there was something there. And he said, you need to get it out in front of the public. So I put my head down and I just painted my butt off for about 3 months, just creating a ton of work in this new style. And the show opened, the Toronto Art Expo. I still remember this. It opened on a Thursday morning at 11 o'clock. And by noon, I had made my booth fee back. By the time my wife, Diane, got down to the show after work on Thursday night, I had 10,000 in sales. And I ended up doing 18,000 in sales that opening night. And I did 28,000 in sales over the course of the weekend in this new work. And I just knew that my life was never going to be the same, and it hasn't. But none of this would have happened if I'd caved in to that pressure to pick a niche, just pick a style and stick with it. It was only because I was willing to stay in that uncomfortable mode of experimentation that's involved in process mode until I found that voice where I love the process, I love the work, and the public loved the work. And that's what I see a lot of other artists doing. They're succumbing to that pressure, they're succumbing to that business advice to pick a niche, pick a style, before they found their ultimate voice. And then they're trying to base a business around that. I think the best way to do this is focus on the art, focus on spending time in process mode, focus on developing until you create that unique voice that people love, and then build a business around that. Now, here's some good news and bad news. The bad news is you could spend the next 50 years just randomly pushing paint around in your studio and never develop that unique voice. But the good news is there are things you can do that are actually going to help you get there and speed up the process. So what are they? Well, the first things that I would recommend is you have to master the skills. Master drawing, master light and shadow, master perspective, all of the conceptual things. Most importantly, you need to master composition, and then seek out influences. Seek out artists whose work you really admire and use them as an influence for trying different things, and then occasionally taking all of the things you've learned and just putting them together in your own unique way. And you just keep doing that until you find that voice. Now, in my art academy, I go into much greater detail into actually how to go about finding that unique voice and fast forwarding the process. So if you're interested in working with me, you can click on the link below here, and that'll give you an amazing discount on my Unstoppable Artist program. And a number of students have used those courses to actually go on to find their voice and have gone on to successful careers. Artists like Emily Valentine, Emma Hainstock, Monica Marquez Gattaca. And at the very least, if you click on that link, you can get 5 free chapters of my upcoming book. Very excited that I have a book coming out. It's called You Can Sell Your Art. It's a step-by-step plan to create a livable income from your art. But if you click on the link, you can get the 5 free chapters for that as well. So if you'd like my help in finding your unique voice, then that's always there. Now, the one thing that I get asked a lot from people is, don't you get tired of painting the same sort of subject in the same way? And all I can do is speak for myself, but the answer is no. That's the great thing for me. The fact that I developed a voice that is very much my own unique process that I love. I don't get tired of painting the backlit forest scenes. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. Now, every once in a while, I do think, gee, maybe is there anything more out there? So every few years, I will take a break from painting the way that I paint, and I'll go into full-on process mode and try and dabble and try different things. And I've already created one other style that I think I could have made a viable living from, and that's my stained glass type pieces. I enjoy doing these, and actually the public likes them, but I don't enjoy doing them as much as my typical stuff. The public doesn't love them quite as much as my typical stuff, and they actually take me longer. So every once in a while, when I feel like I need a vacation from painting the way I regularly paint, I'll go and do one of these. But for the most part, I still just really love the way that I paint. And also this year, I had about a year off because of the move to our new home. And I thought right at the start, I'm going to go into process mode. So I spent about a month this year kind of really kind of being all over the map and pushing more into abstract and really thick paint. And that was fun. And I picked up a few things that I can use in my work. But after a month of that, I just felt like, no, I want to get back to painting the way that I paint. And so again, do I get tired of painting kind of the similar subject matter in a similar way? The answer is no. If I ever do, you won't see me do it anymore, but I still love coming into my studio and creating work like this. So what's the key takeaway here? Well, it is that one painting can actually change your life, that one breakthrough piece, but not if you stop searching for it before you get there. So don't succumb to that pressure to pick a niche and start focusing on building a business around the work you're creating right now. Focus on the art. Focus on searching for that voice. And once you've found it, then build the business around that. Because here's the one thing I can tell you. When you find that unique voice, where you love the process, you love the finished work, and the public loves the finished work, making a decent living from your art becomes very easy. Until you do that, it's always going to be a struggle. So don't try to short circuit the process. Don't try to kind of speed it up. It takes as long as it takes, but once you get there, it's well worth it. And again, if you want to get 5 free chapters from my book and maybe work with me on developing that voice, you can click on the link below.